slight cameo from Mad Max, which absolutely doesn't make sense at all. Drive-by movies, you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name's Blaise.
And I'm James.
And this week we're talking about George Miller's latest film, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga.
In George Miller's new Mad Max story, we follow the origin story of renegade warrior Furiosa before her encounter and team up with the one and only Max. So, Furiosa, 9 years in the making, kinda, but this is also apparently like 20 years in the making because this was supposed to be made the same time as Fury Road. But finally, we got this prequel after a huge settlement between Miller and Warner Brothers, and just like us waiting years for any kind of development. It just kind of happened suddenly, and then out of nowhere, the trailer popped. And, you know, this is a movie that I was anticipating, but finally it's out. Blaise, was it worth the wait?
So yeah, I just rewatched Mad Max Fury Road before this, so it was absolutely cool to go into this, you know, the prequel, you know, right after rewatching Fury Road. And I hadn't seen it, I think, for a couple years. I mean, it's a film I have, you know, a couple viewings under my belt, but I hadn't seen it in a couple years, and it absolutely hit. It got me so pumped to go in and see this movie. And while I feel like this doesn't have, you know, that same kind of high octane action, I felt like it was a killer revenge movie.
Absolutely. This movie, I mean, right off the bat, you're caught off guard by the chapters, I'd say. I really dug that direction within this movie, just going with a whole different kind of narrative. You know, long action sequences within this movie. There's really only like 3 action sequences, but all are pretty long, drawn out scenes, which are great and, you know, what you would expect from a Mad Max George Miller movie. But at the end of the day, though, this is a whole different story, and I appreciated its new style visuals, its new characters, and once again being thrown into this world, and I'm obsessed again. I saw Fury Road in theaters, I believe 4 times, and a little story about Blaise. Blaise doesn't see movies twice in theaters ever, but I remember he saw it in San Diego, came back to LA, and was like, dude, we gotta go see Mad Max again, and we saw it again in theaters. So, you know, epic movie that, like, you know, we'll never forget. But Furiosa on its own still stands very well. I see why a lot of people might be disappointed going in, but like, don't try to hype your up. Look, I can't see a Mad Max movie without Max. Like, you're not a true fan if that's the case, because you should know that Max is never the main character in any of these movies, really, whatsoever. Like, tone it down.
I mean, he is in this film.
Yeah, exactly. Which I love that. Yeah, a little nod. Like I didn't need that sequence within the movie. If anything, the one thing I didn't need a Mad Max Saga written there. I know that was like probably a note from like Warner Brothers. Like, we need people to know that this is related to the last Mad Max movie. And it's just like, at the end of the day, like, come on, we did not need that little tagline within this title of this movie.
From the book of Mad Max.
Right. Spiral, take notes.
A saga. A saga. Anyways, yeah, like I thought that this movie absolutely hit. You know, we mentioned just that little slight cameo from Mad Max, which absolutely doesn't make sense at all because the timelines don't really match up there at all. But it was like a fun nod that maybe he's just so insane wandering the wasteland, doing the same thing over and over again almost. Because, you know, in the beginning of the last film, you kind of see that he has kind of lost his mind. But yeah, I thought that this film, you know, was a fun kind of prequel because you have a lot of the characters that you've seen in Fury Road, but just kind of not really totally their origin story, but you see them before that film takes place, obviously. I mean, of course, we have Furiosa's origin story, which was awesome. And I thought it was a really crazy move from George Miller to literally spend, I think it was over an hour. Like, I kept checking my watch because I was like confused as to, not confused, I was more impressed. Like, just like, okay, Anya Taylor-Joy still hasn't showed up in this movie, and it's over an hour in. I was like, how long can he last, like, not showing, you know, the star of the movie? So I was like frantically checking my watch just to like clock in how much time had elapsed. Not because the film was boring, but just of like how ballsy of a move George Miller, you know, made making this picture.
Yeah, I was expecting that, like, kind of like vignette style filmmaking within this movie, where it's gonna be all like start with Anya Taylor-Joy and maybe like have dream sequences and flashbacks, like similar to like Man of Steel or something, where, you know, we get the main narrative, but then we're getting backstory throughout the movie. That's what I was expecting from this movie. I wasn't expecting it to kind of be a continuous timeline storyline. But yeah, like I went to the bathroom once during the movie, and I think it was about like halfway through, or maybe like a, you know, at least a third of the way through, and Anya Taylor-Joy still hadn't made it into the movie yet. And like this is a movie that I definitely do want to see again, just to like catch up on things that I might have missed. Not that, like, you know, there was like crazy narrative details I missed out on, but just like I love being thrown into this world. You and I think own all 4 of the comics that George Miller put out when Fury Road came out, those like little prequel storylines for Immortan Joe, Furiosa, and Max. And definitely want to reread those too, just to see how some of those might tie into this movie, because part of it does, especially I think with the Furiosa comic book. But yeah, I loved seeing this, the green place finally, like even though we get a short sequence within it, and then just seeing how she kind of worked her way into getting the war rig. A lot of people think it's the same war rig. It's obviously not. Like, that war rig gets trashed in this movie. Like, did you not watch this movie?
It's probably pieces of it though. Like it probably gets like maybe salvaged. But it was cool to actually see some of the little hints to, you know, the film. What was it? Dementis's car is the same car that Immortan Joe's driving in Fury Road. Like a lot, you'll recognize a lot of the bodies and shells of cars, and like they do appear in Fury Road, and you'd assume like maybe they get passed down or, you know, reworked on by a lot of the mechanics in the Citadel, which was, I thought was like a fun little nod. It's kind of cool to see like all those kind of behind the scenes moments where you only get a glimpse of them in Fury Road, really.
Right, yeah. And, you know, like, I like that a lot of stuff isn't spelled out for you within this movie, too. Because, there's a lot of, it doesn't feel like Solo. That's a movie where, like, that's how you do a bad prequel for the Star Wars movies, where it's just like, how did he get the name Ton Solo? Like, oh, he went to a place Solo, and that's his new last name. Like, there's nothing, like, written out for you where it's just, like, eye-rolling within this movie. Like, Furiosa losing her arm, getting the backstory on that, like, is a perfect, like, just like sequence of just like, oh damn, she got hit by the car, and like, you know, she's probably gonna have to amputate it, and then like, no, that wasn't even it, she cut off her own arm just to escape and stuff too. I was like, that's some badass stuff too, to like kind of lead you on in one path thinking she might have to amputate from an injury, but no, it turns out that she did it herself just to get away. Like, that was badass. And, you know, I really liked the little sequences of just like, you know, how she got to where she was, like and also it makes perfect sense with, like, you know, just this is a world where everyone scavenge is a scavenger basically, so makes sense on how these cars came about. And I liked that not too much was focused on other characters. Like, we could have got a lot with Immortan Joe, could have got a lot with People Eater, Bullet Farmer and stuff, but instead it's just focused mainly on Furiosa and this new villain, Dementis, who I thought was actually a fun character. I normally don't really care for Chris Hemsworth. I liked him in Rush. You and I reviewed that on our old podcast a long time ago and enjoyed his performance, us kind of going in thinking he'd kind of suck, but, you know, he's showing his range, and I really enjoyed him. I don't think he steals the show like everyone is saying. He's definitely one of the, like, standpoints and, like, one of the main reasons to go check it out, I think, because he is a fun villain. But overall, I just like the whole world building this movie still does. It
was interesting that they threw, like, I feel like it was kind of unnecessary to throw on a prosthetic onto him for the performance. I think it did kind of like disguise him, but I'm kind of getting overall, like, it never looks bad, but I'm kind of getting over like every celebrity that's, you know, attractive has to have like a prosthetic thrown on because they can't like cast somebody like a character actor, because apparently no character actors exist anymore. But I mean, I think he did a great job. I'm just like, do we have to have like just some crazy prosthetic on him to make it not look like him?
The beard was like already enough, because it's such a weird like beard and mustache combo. Like, the beard is normal, you would expect that. He kind of has just like that big medieval style beard, which, you know, we're in this wasteland. Like, I expect people don't shave as often as they need to. I expect people to have long hair, but him like twirling the mustache was funny enough. That's all he needed, really. The big nose was a little over the top, just because, you know, at the end of the day, Chris Hemsworth is huge. Like, he already stands out. He's still a good looking guy. We didn't need to make him like try to uglify him, essentially.
Yeah, but I would say overall though, I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's an excellent revenge movie. I think it also is just fun to see more of this kind of wasteland. It's something that, you know, we see in the older films. We saw this reinvented wasteland in Fury Road, but it was cool to kind of revisit that same wasteland because it's not obviously not the same as, you know, the older movies, kind of in a way, like especially the look of it. One thing I will say though is everyone, when the trailer dropped, even me, was complaining about the visual effects in the trailer. They did not get fixed when it came to the release of this movie. There's a lot of visual effects that are fine, but there's a lot of like screen and window replacements, especially when they're driving, that are like god awful.
Yeah, there was like a chase sequence when her and Jack character were escaping after they made their escape in the car. There's a scene where he pulls up in that huge car with the monster truck wheels, and I was just like, that looks so incredibly like awkward and not real. Like that wasn't natural the way it like stopped and like after they were able to like catch up onto them. And yeah, so like it didn't take me out of the way. Like at the end of the day, like it looks very distinct though. Like I wasn't sure if they were trying to go for a speed racer look, because you know, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, well, there's tons of CGI in Fury Road. Yeah, there is, but a lot of it did look good. The only scene that was very over the top was like that desert storm sequence, which, you know, I'm sure was on purpose. But a lot of this looks real, but then just like overly like shiny, polished CGI, which just felt awkward to me at times. Like it didn't necessarily take me out, but you're right, though. Like, yeah, I would say it's not good CGI. It didn't necessarily bother me enough to like take me out of the movie, but it would like I would just like kind of be like, oh, that's a little awkward looking and stuff. Yeah.
It was weird too because it felt like some of it was stuff that would be easy to just do right.
Right.
Like it's usually like window replacements when they're driving. I'm like, why does that look like I did it? Yeah. Like, and not somebody who you know makes thousands of dollars like doing that. You know, it's like I couldn't do a better job, but I could do equally that job. Mm-hmm. You know, it felt like.
But yeah, I applaud this movie for just like, you know, taking me out of my world and making me feel so immersed into this wasteland world. So that's what I'll always appreciate about these Mad Max movies, even if like, you know, I'm not as crazy about the originals. Like I love the Road Warrior. I love even the original Mad Max. And I actually really enjoy Beyond Thunderdome, but there's a lot of flaws in all three of those movies. But I always appreciate how it just takes me into a different dimension. These Fury Road and this movie also do the same. So definitely go check it out in theaters because it doesn't seem like a lot of people are. Highly recommend it. Great way to help support the show. Watch it, leave a comment, let us know what you thought about the movie.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, catch all our social media links down below. We got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and our own personal Letterboxd accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.